What's up, Scyushi Squad? We are back in more Trove, and today we're going to be talking about the patch notes on the test server. So I ended up having a couple videos highlighting this new update that is currently on the test server of the PC version of the game, which means that it'll probably end up showing up either later in this month, or more than likely it'll end up showing up in December. Now, I don't know whether or not we're going to end up seeing the Boomeranger update combined with this update. For those of you guys on console, I'm just still saying that we don't really know what's going on with the Boomeranger update. And you guys, this update is pretty cool. I had a quick video summarizing everything that was coming about with it, and then I ended up doing a live stream where we deep dived into all the different details. But today's video is going to primarily focus on the patch notes themselves with a little bit of feedback. This is kind of just okay, let's just do a nice big information dump for you guys. So let's get started. I will put a link in the description to the original post. So they do mention how we're pleased to introduce the Reeling in the Stars patch for all of you, including the new star chart system and a rework to fishing, as some of you have already guessed. When introducing these systems, we wanted to create one that would reward investment in the core gameplay of the game and allow players some choices on how to empower their gameplay. The star chart allows activating individual stars in a blah blah blah. It's a skill tree system, okay? So that's going to end up being the biggest part of this update. The funny thing is that so many of us are being distracted by the fishing aspect, even though that's not really the part of this update that anybody's particularly excited about. So here is the skill tree of Trove. This is going to end up being the star chart, and then each of these are called stars or constellations or whatever. Each of these different skill trees has 3 different types. So there's going to be combat oriented, world oriented, and gather oriented. We ended up kind of going through all of these on the last live stream, so if you guys want to check that out, you can. Otherwise, we will have other videos a little bit further in the future that are going to focus on what you would end up building towards in the star chart, what's going to be your best option, so on and so forth. When this update goes live, I'm probably going to wait until then, just because a lot of this is subject to change. But the one thing that I took away from it is that some of the stats that you get out of the skill tree are going to end up being a light value, which is always going to end up being very nice. There's huge increases to damage. There's also just gathering resources in general has had an increase in the gathering tree. But more notably for me, you can get 28 extra movement speed on your character, which is pretty dang cool. So let's get to the star chart portion of the patch notes. So Trovians have discovered the power of the stars, learning how to use the stars to empower themselves. There are 3 primary constellations: gathering, world, combat, as we mentioned. Each of the primary constellations may give bonuses associated with other constellations, but will primarily focus on their specific area. So the point is that you can get some combat oriented stuff in this skill tree, but most of it is going to be lasermancy and so on and so forth, right? You can end up increasing a lot of your flask capacity as well. So the primary currency in order to end up unlocking all this stuff is going to end up being astral echoes, which is a new currency. So that's going to be this item right here, which is used to purchase these celestial spheres out of this idiot's inventory. They really need to touch up the description. Devs, I don't know if you're watching this, but seriously, the description of this, as well as a lot of the descriptions for these, are just bad. Like, they have either a lack of explanation for the player, or quite specifically, have tons and tons of typos. But the main problem that I have is the astral echoes. It just says these echoes are found all over the world of Trove. No, they're not. It is found from completing dungeons and completing delves. Additionally, there is an Astral Echoes Almanac, which is a legendary tome that you can end up buying out of the More tab in the store, which we might not have the More tab. Yeah, the More tab is kind of broken on test server. I would have to swap worlds to show you guys. Let me do that right quick. There we go. So it's going to end up being right here. It'll end up giving you 5,000 Astral Echoes per week. You can also end up buying constellation keys and fishing nets, which we'll talk about those a little bit later in the video. So the crafter's corner in the hub has been updated with the upper portion that we ended up just going to, where there's, you know, the guy chilling up there, and that's going to be where the shop is, and so on and so forth. Interacting with this crafting table opens all of this, and you can end up using celestial keys in order to unlock different categories of, well, just different parts of the star chart and stuff. You can end up resetting the star chart at any point as well, which is kind of interesting. So you can end up respecking any way that you want, honestly speaking, which is pretty cool. But personally speaking, I think it would be a lot better if you could upgrade this and then you could just take the toggle the upgrade on and off. I think that would be a much better system, but we are talking about Trove here, and beggars can't be choosers, so whatever. So using keys will unlock different paths and so on and so forth, but then most of all, you're going to have to use these celestial spheres in order to unlock all the different abilities themselves. So celestial keys are used to unlock paths in the constellation as a one-time cost, so that's going to be permanently open, but you can also use them to reset the skill tree entirely, and path unlocks are permanent and cannot be reset, meaning that if we end up using a key here, we'll always have access to these different routes, even if we end up respecking. So the celestial, which is this NPC, has a limited supply of spheres. So while the star chart actually has 120 different abilities that you can end up getting, or stars as they call them, you'll only be able to have 40 of them in total unlocked based on this guy's celestial spheres. Now, before we move on, I do want to mention that these astral echoes are extremely difficult to get so far, at least on the test server. Now, keeping in mind, obviously, I'm not grinding for hours on end doing dungeons so that I could get this currency, but it doesn't seem like it's a guaranteed drop from dungeons. It seemed like it's random, which means that when this update ends up going live, obviously we'll just slowly end up earning astral echoes so that we could buy all of this stuff, but it's probably going to end up taking a long time to do it, which, I mean, whatever, I guess it's perfectly fine. It's just giving us passive stats, which quite possibly, if these stats end up giving us more power rank, it means that we could end up getting up to 50,000 PR, which I'm not saying that it will let us do that, but I'm just letting you guys know that we have seen that the power rank sigil in the top left does actually have a 50k PR version that is within the game's code. It does have a 50k PR sigil. Now, my money is on, with the fact that we're becoming so overpowered with this update, it tells me that they're getting ready for something in the future. Like maybe early next year, we'll end up getting U12 or Crystal 5 gear or some new end game area. It might just be as simple as U12, which I would be perfectly accepting of. But my point is, we're already like really powerful in this game when we have everything maxed out. So having this just give us extra stats is going to be nuts. So there is also going to end up being a new dragon that you can end up getting from all of these different trees. So there's going to be the Balefire Dragon Fragment, which I don't have this dragon, and we can't end up actually obtaining it from dragon effigies, so just keep that in mind. Now we'll move on to the fishing recast portion of the patch. So same building, but instead we're going to end up going down into this basement, which I still feel that they should really liven this up and have multiple entrances to here so that it's a little more obvious. But I don't know, maybe they'll iron it out in the tutorial or something. It seems pretty plain down here, but that's because as we end up progressing in the fishing tree, which I'll show you guys that in a bit, we're going to end up unlocking more and more NPCs that'll be down here to give us different benefits and so on and so forth. So fishing has been recast or overhauled. It creates a more dynamic and active experience for players. It's more active, that's for sure, but it is not necessarily more dynamic. Fishing is basically the exact same, where you just start fishing in the water and then there you go, but there are a different set of elements that are going to make it a little bit funner and, well, maybe not funner, but a little bit more involved. So the crafter's corner in the hub, blah blah, you can come down here. There's a bunch of different things you can interact with. Accessing the Pond of Power workbench, so this is going to end up being the skill tree for fishing, and I'll leave you guys my feedback on this whole fishing narrative a little bit later, but anyways, accessing this pond will end up going through these various trees, which you'll end up getting various resources in order to end up advancing these. So there's Trophy of the Depths, there's going to end up being Key to the Depths, and so on and so forth. So eventually there's going to end up being some passive abilities that will affect boats, reveal some daily adventures, so daily quests and stuff, and unlock bait recipes and different effects while fishing as well. So you might get like a buff for faster fishing and so on for a temporary amount of time. New lures have been added to the table as well. The lures have various effects, and players can fish without a lure active, but will only catch old boots. So there's still going to be these generic lures, but then there's basically going to end up being another type that will be a buff. So lures are now buffs that are applied to the player. They have a number of charges equal to the number of times they can be used. One charge is used per fish caught. Lures last up to 2 hours if not used. Basically food items. So I'm assuming it's going to end up going into your food slot, which is going to be kind of odd. Maybe it's just that it goes in your inventory and you just right click it and nothing happens, or it just dissipates over time. I don't know. Lures have various effects. So quick lures catch fish faster, seeker lures increase the drop rate of rare fish, and depth lures increase the catch rate of trophy fish. New food recipes for fish can be found at the angler's grill after they've been acquired from the depth of angler. So you can see these are right here, which I guess I must have unlocked them or something. I don't know. For some reason I can just see these now, but okay, well, anyways, that's going to end up being light food that we can end up crafting, so I guess that's kind of cool. But ultimately, we're going to end up unlocking more items through this table that will end up giving us more food, like canned food and fish lures and blah, 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 that we can get out of there. So fish now loot collects into canned fish and sometimes additional materials rather than just glim. Trophy fish can now be loot collected for glim as well. Fish caught before this update have become fermented, which basically means that if you have like 1,000 fish in your inventory right now, it's not going to affect this update in any way, shape, or form. It is only going to be affected by the new fish that you catch after this update goes live, so just keep that in mind. The size of fish has also been adjusted as the power from the depths has been released into Trove. Okay, whatever. Fish have now learned to move away from heavily fished areas and avoid club worlds entirely. So as a player fishes in an area, they may reach a point where only boots can be found in the water. Moving to another area will find more fish again, and this will the effect will end up going away over time in the area that you were just fishing in. This seems stupid, and that's because it is, but it is clearly a method to try and prevent people from bot fishing, I guess. The funny thing is that we've actually got some really nice mods on PC already. Chronicle, the guy who made the boss radar mod, has a really, really nice one for fishing that shows you like where the fishing ponds are, how much fish are currently in the pond and stuff. So PC Master Race, sorry console players, you won't have that when this update goes live. So the popular Poptopus, I don't know what that is, has abandoned Club Worlds and is now found in a different area in Trove. Oh, I see. So that was a fish that you can only get exclusively out of Club Worlds, and I guess they just moved it somewhere else. Fish can now appear in pools. So let me actually see if I can find one of these for you guys while we kind of read through these. So pools can be found in standing liquids or source blocks for anybody in the world who plays Minecraft. Water, chocolate, lava, and plasma is the only locations that you can find it, and it is not in flowing liquids. So again, reiterating that it is source blocks only. Let me actually see if I can find a pond right here as we go through this. So there is also going to end up being several allies that you can be found in rare fishing ponds. Being hit by enemies will automatically cancel fishing. Additionally, fishing now requires the player to stand still while casting their line, but you can still end up doing emotes while you're fishing in general. So you can actually see right over here, here's going to end up being some of the fishing ponds. Now, the weird thing is, we can actually fish off of our boat now, which is really, really cool. I don't know if that was always a thing and I just didn't know about it, but it's there now, and that's the important thing, because obviously how would you end up fishing in these open waters? So it's kind of neat. But you can see I'm not actually catching anything, probably because I don't have any lures equipped or anything like that. But anyways, let's move on. So there are also going to end up being new fishing adventures, so quests that can be acquired after unlocking them in the depths of the angler, which is the skill tree. These new adventures can be acquired daily from saltwater Sam in the fishing hub area, and can be consumed to begin adventures, which I think is really, really cool. It's basically going to be a scroll that's in your inventory that you can just use right here, and you'll end up starting the daily quest instead of having to go back to an NPC, annoyingly enough, right? So I think that's something that they should do with the entirety of how quests are affected in the whole game, right? Like that would just be really, really cool to me. Oh, and to clarify, the Saltwater Sam NPC that they're talking about, as I mentioned, is one NPC that you'll have to unlock through the skill tree down here. It's not just instantly here right now, so just keeping that in mind. There's going to end up being 2 new legendary dragons. Aquarius, which is going to be risen from the depths, have been added, and the blah, 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 blah. That's going to end up being... Where do you get his fragments? I think you just get them rarely from fishing in general. And then there's going to end up being the Capricorn Dragon, which is this guy right here, which is Mark of the Angler is required, which is another resource that you can end up getting from various areas in the game, blah, 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 blah. I'll show you guys the new dragons because these bad boys are actually affected by a dragon effigy, which is pretty cool. So we got this one as the Aquarius guy, and he's pretty neat. He's got nice wings, nice VFX. Everything about him is pretty cool. I don't know why it won't let me actually shoot. There we go. That was weird. But he's really, really cool. I like that dragon a lot, actually. And then there's going to be the Capricorn one. This one I don't particularly like. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Does this one have water stats, actually? No, it doesn't. So it's not going to end up swimming, which is a bit weird. It kind of feels like it should. But you can see its VFX are kind of interesting. The flying is very, very strange on this dragon, but... okay, cool. You can also get golden dragon eggs from dragon caches, of course. So the Master Angler fishing net has also been added to the More tab in the store. So that's why I mentioned earlier was sitting right here. It's going to be 50 credits a pop. The nets themselves are going to catch 5 fish at a time with a single use in any fishing liquid. So you basically will throw one, it catches 5 fish from that little pond, and then it's consumed. That's it. It's gone forever. These nets are tradable, which means that there is going to end up being some sort of pay-to-win trade method. Like, people will probably end up buying these and selling them on the player market, I would assume. But they're pretty expensive considering the amount of fish that the game is actually requiring you to obtain. Many fish can be found in the pools all over Trove. Pools can harbor the various coral, slugs, frogs, anglerfish, squids, and elements that have collected all over Trove. Sharks have also been known to frequent these gatherings, so I'm hoping what that means is as you're fishing in an area, sharks show up to attack you or something, but I doubt it. There are new depth fish that can only be caught in with a special fishing pole that you can get from this guy, which is going to be this right here, and that's going to be how you catch fish in, I assume, the delves. A new invasive species of turtles from the depths can be hunted in Trove with the special turtle trawler fishing pole sold by Mr. Thomas Turtle, who isn't here right now because I haven't unlocked him. And then finally, the fish of Trove have become steeped in the power released from the depths. Fish all over Trove have increased in size and offer a new challenge to veteran anglers. Several new boats, sails, and allies have been added to the fishing skill tree as well. Several new fishing poles can be obtained while fishing in the Sundered Uplands, which is kind of interesting. And the models for some existing fish trophies have been updated to resemble the fish themselves a little bit more closely, which is kind of cool. Now, my own quick feedback on the fishing in general is that this is quite literally parasitic game design. So I know it sounds really, really bad, and that's because it kind of is, but more so, parasitic game design means that this is going to end up being a separate function of the game that doesn't actually work well and is not designed to fit with the rest of the game, thus being called parasitic, where it's like a parasite. So it kind of just latches onto the core gameplay mechanics, but it still ends up kind of doing its own thing over here that even if you end up maxing out your fishing, it's not really going to end up affecting the core gameplay itself. It's just going to end up giving you like passive stats, or in the fishing skill crafting table, more specifically, all of this that you see right here is going to just affect fishing as a whole. Not much of it is going to affect anything outside of this. Not like the skill table or the skill tree that we saw up in the astral corner. That's going to end up being a little bit more of a significant change to the overall functionality of Trove as a whole versus this bad boy, which is going to be kind of cool, but it's just fishing. Now, as far as I've calculated, pay to win, I think maxing out this fishing table is going to cost upwards of $100. Maybe if you get super duper lucky, you can max it out in $100. But I think that at the most expensive, it's going to cost maybe like $200-300 worth of credits in order to max this out. And I'm just saying that so that you guys have an idea of just how expensive this could be, because you could end up just buying a whole full video game for the same price that it's going to cost to max out your fishing skill tree in Trove, which again, like, look at this stuff. It's just grants the Capricorn dragon, increases crit hit for 10 seconds after standing in plasma, unlock the starry snail ally. Like, it's all just going to end up being these little things. Nothing is necessarily mandatory out of this crafting table, in which case I'm not super duper disappointed, because of the fact that with this fishing crafting table being so parasitic, it means that we can actually kind of just ignore it when the new update comes live, because once again, this is like the Bomber Royale Season 3. This is the update nobody asked for. If this was the only feature of this new update, then I think a lot of players' disappointment would make sense. But generally speaking, because we have the astral skill tree table up here, I think it balances out. I think it's all fine. And even with the fishing, I'm not saying I'm against doing the fishing. So there, I think, is going to be one of the new crafting table, or one of the new trophies. Anyways, there is additional changes. There's not really much worth talking about here. Yeah, so looking at it, it's just a bunch of fixes, not really anything worth talking about. So anyways, that's going to be my 2 cents towards it. What do you guys think of the update? You think it's cool? Remember, fishing is not the primary of this update. It is instead going to be this skill tree, which is, yeah, technically this is also kind of parasitic in its design. But the fact that we're getting this astral echoes from just doing dungeons, which is something that we would be doing anyways, makes me feel like this is a lot less like evil, you know what I mean? Now that said, there is still going to end up being the very real pay to win aspect of this update, but keeping in mind that even if you end up using the cash shop to buy some of the currencies for the skill tree or for fishing and stuff, you still are going to have to put in the grind time. So it's not 100% pay to win in that method. And the fact that it's all tradable is really, really cool. Anyways, oh my God, this guy's actually got Yabaki. I don't know how, but cool. He must be someone who has it on the live server then. Yes, Yabaki brothers. I've never seen this, dude. That's crazy. Anyways, thanks for watching, gamers. Smash like stuff for more. Buy the merch you want to support the channel. I'm trying to work on holiday merch, but we'll see if I get that out in time. I've been a little bit busy with all this stuff, obviously. Bye, guys.